I do feel unbelievably energized. Some people think it's because everybody from Toronto, and I am Canadian, as Dave said, has got a little cocaine problem. And it's true. It's a very bad health problem. But no, I'm really passionate about the stuff that Cappy was talking about. And by the way, just going way off script, which everybody who knows me knows that's just par for the course. You wouldn't believe how tight our partnership is. Obviously between EMC and Ahead, but me and Eric, literally day in and day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, when there's a strategic topic that's being debated in the halls of Hopkinton or in Santa Clara, usually Eric's one of the first people to know because we're going, hey, what do you guys think? What do you see amongst your customers? The world's moving really, really fast, and so partnerships that are important have a new level of intimacy, which is weird a little bit because everyone's used to the world being one of keep your options open and don't hyper invest in one place or another, whether you're a customer and that's your vendors and you want to keep things open, whether you're a vendor and you've got partner community that you've got to support and endorse. The reality of it is that the idea of kind of deep lock-in is kind of an idea of the past. If you're deploying your applications the right way, your infrastructure the right way, no one has power of lock-in anymore, right? There's only perhaps one way you can lock yourself in, and that reminds me of a horrific customer meeting I had yesterday. So I really hope that they're not here. By the way, who here's a customer, an EMC customer? Thank you very much, all of you guys, for being customers. You make the world go around for us every day. So this meeting I had yesterday, customer blank, it was with the infrastructure team. And in there, first thing that was a little cringeworthy was there was a very distinct server network storage team, kind of sitting apart from each other in the room. And at multiple points in the discussion, they kind of like said, oh, well, that's their fault or their fault. And you're like, oh, this is not cool. And then there was a discussion over what are you doing around Hadoop? And they said, well, it's not our group, it's not infrastructure, it's this other group over here that does that, right? And you're kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks. Like, why aren't you doing something cool with that? And they said, well, it's because it's done in this other group that has to do with research. And they're in kind of like, quote unquote, retail, not retail, but retail. And they're like, well, we don't have a use for that. That's research and analytics. And you're like, why don't you analyze what you do and do something cool with it, right? And then we asked them, like, what's your plan around infrastructure? They're like, we're all hosed. It's all moving to AWS. We're done. Decision got made. And I'm like, that's awesome. And they're like, what is wrong with you, buddy? And I'm like, you have got an opportunity to become a broker of IT services. If you're a storage, administrator, it's really boring to manage LUNs day in and day out. Wouldn't it be cool to think about the whole ecosystem of storage offerings that are out there and maybe what you could do internally to publish them as services? And by the way, infrastructure as a service is the substrate underneath the app layer. Have you guys built a self-service portal? Yes, we have. And I'm like, elaborate. And they go, well, when someone needs to, we give them access to vCenter. They log in and they deploy a template. And I'm like, oh my God, so who's the somebody here? And they go, oh, it's the other administrator. Right? And I'm like, no, you're not seeing it. So I started to basically go, your mama's ugly. Like I started to kind of go, I wanted to get them energized and excited and maybe fight me a little bit, but they were just resigned, right? And I think that it's very important for everybody, regardless of what your role is, whether you're in the networking domain or storage domain or VMware domain or you're a CIO, to be really excited because there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And I feel very passionate about that. Now, the topic that I'm very excited to talk about today is the idea of the federation that represents EMC, VMware, and Pivotal. This is a very confusing topic. And confusing topics can be netted out in very simple and easy ways, but you have to force yourself to do it. So the way I'm going to force myself to do it is I'm going to present this PechaKucha style. So PechaKucha is a funky way of presenting where there's 20 slides, ugh, but the slides will auto move forward every 20 seconds. So the pain and suffering will be over in roughly 6 minutes, right? In fact, exactly, 6 minutes, 20 seconds, or 40 seconds. So as soon as I hit go, we're going to be off and to the races. So we're going to be talking about the software-defined enterprise and go. So it was great to have Eric talk about the view of the world and James talk about the view of the world. And they talked about how much things are getting disrupted. We heard the Tesla example. We heard the Nest example. Right? The Uber example is another one, right? Where literally taxi companies are suing Uber because they're being put out of business because now they've cut out the middleman. I was in Australia and New Zealand, and they had new Uber-like services that were being developed, right? There's no question that everyone's being disrupted, and there's a ton of change in the air. Now, at every enterprise customer, they have these two challenges, which is, how do I move really, really fast? How do I become the Usain Bolt of whatever I do as a business or as a person in the industry, in a component of that IT team? But the other thing that you got to do is, frankly, everyone's under macro cost constraints. So how do you squeeze your costs so that you can invest over here? How do you squeeze your CapEx so that you can actually do something cool and new, right? And invest in new parts of the business. And then how do you balance the risk that exists between these two things? And here I'm not talking about compliance risk or security risk. I'm talking about the risk that you blow up your business because you don't properly balance these two things, right? Which is not easy. It's very tricky and very scary because fundamentally the things that keep the lights on are not going to be the things that, you know, make you grow. And that's true for EMC, it's true for VMware, it's true for Pivotal, it's true for all of you. There's lots of great examples to look at, and these come in all shapes and forms in all industries. Some, Esurance, are examples, like James said, where they've been spun out because they couldn't figure out how to do it in their existing Allstate, you know, structure, right? GE is one that's trying to do it within their businesses. You can see Samsung went from being a, you know, television company to being a phone company, right? And now they're no longer the Android company. They're trying to figure out how you innovate in new ways. But there's equally horrific examples. So if those are awesome, there's horrific examples that show the death, destruction, and hellstorm that comes if you don't, right? And it doesn't happen slowly. It's like the frog boiling. You know, it's and done, right? The point that's fascinating to me about this is I am a technologist, so I tend to look at the world through the technology lens first. But the secret to success is linking together the yin and the yang of the business change and the IT change that needs to come with it. Those things, when they happen separately, it never works right. And to highlight the contrast of the old and the new, I'm going to go through a series of examples. Old IT, here's your standard image. New IT, pick whatever device you want because I know that if I try and stop you, you'll find a way to do it yourself anyway, right? And the question is, how do I enable you to do that? How do I build new applications that support the way that you're going to operate? Old IT, mega SAP ERP project that needs to support the CFO, you know, in core ERP process and mechanics, and that's at the core of the business, right? That project is a huge waterfall project that takes years. We have some of those. I hate them. The new IT is basically rapid agile development, building new apps in new ways, using frameworks and things like Cloud Foundry. Old IT basically says you have silos of information, right, that are in OLTP databases, and then you do ETL, transform it, and then do BI data warehousing. New IT, build a giant data lake where you take all of these different data sources and bring them into a single repository sitting on a giant HDFS pool. Old IT, silos of infrastructure, silos of teams, by the way, that match those silos of infrastructure. Where it's really difficult to deploy. New IT, whether it's on-prem or off-prem, infrastructure as a service is as simple as basically a BOSH call to a set of infrastructure that's being run as a pool of rapidly agile, abstracted out infrastructure. Old IT of security, firewalls, VPN, perimeter, defense in depth. New IT, screw it. The bad guys are inside. We've got problems. We're just going to roll with it. We're going to gather data and network flows and logs and look at it as a big data analytics problem. If you map all that stuff out, as Eric said, massive change, which can cause you to freak out or feel very energized and excited. I choose, that's a choice, right? I choose to be excited about it. Now, we need to redefine ourselves, we need to redefine our businesses, we need to redefine IT. And the thing that's interesting is you can take all of those old and news and map them into kind of a view of the old agenda. And if you see this stuff on your own internal meetings and discussions, go, yep, this is an old agenda discussion, okay. The new discussion are really around these topics on the right. How do I build new mobile apps? How do I build a software-defined data center? Now, if you think about the structure of EMC, kind of as three separate independent companies, that's actually how we operate, right? They're designed around how do we, at each layer of this cake, in an independent way, and I'll describe this in a little bit in more detail, attack those 5 big IT problems and challenges. We build this around solution stacks that are loosely coupled, just like in the same way that APIs set you free, not because the APIs themselves do it, but because they abstract things. We've abstracted the federation models of infrastructure, of software-defined data center, software-defined enterprise. Each one of the elements of the companies plays a role in this. At the bottom, software-defined data center, building PaaS frameworks, building new mobile computing applications and frameworks, building business data lakes, and building security. Each element of the companies, the federation, work together on this sort of project. And if you peel this back, there's elements of technology in here. Like EMC has to disrupt ourselves with things like Extreme I/O that disrupt how you build data centers. So it's pooled, flash-centric, it's simple, it's easy. Things like HDFS storage models. At VMware's layer, the software-defined data center, things like vSAN, things like NSX. And at Pivotal's layer, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, and Pivotal HDFS. Pivotal does play a very critical role inside that ecosystem, and there's little linkages between each one of them. And theirs is what James talked about, which is apps drive the business, apps generate data, those generate insights that help you improve your apps. And the faster you can go around this circle, the better. The more you actually innovate, the more value you generate. Now, the way that Joe Tucci has structured this is basically a defense against the greatest risk to any high-tech enterprise, which is that you don't disrupt yourself. We're architected horizontally, where EMC partners with OpenStack, right? VMware partners with everybody, both north and south, and Pivotal Cloud Foundry works with Amazon, VCHS, and others, right? But we do bring them together in a tightly coupled way as well. So you have choice. Do you want to use us together, or do you want to use us separately? And it's more often than not going to be a mix of both. Does that make sense? 6 minutes. Boom, done. Painless. Right? So I want to just dig into a couple things in a little more detail in the short time that I've got. An area to pay attention to is basically the stuff that James was talking about. Again, show of hands. Who here is mostly an infrastructure person? Mostly. Right? I got good news for you and bad news for you. The world of infrastructure is simultaneously becoming more relevant, that's good news, and less relevant, bad news. The way it is more relevant is in its degree of programmability and how it interfaces with the application layer. Previously, those were not connected at all, right? The more programmable you make your infrastructure, the more invisible it becomes. But the more valuable it becomes because of its degree of abstraction. And that's true whether it's on-prem or off-prem, right? The bad news is that you need to get rid of a lot of ideas that were legacy ideas that you need to discard. There's whole new architectural models in the domains of networking and of storage and compute that are changing these domains, and on top of it, things that abstract and pool and automate them, which are mostly in the domains of management and orchestration at every layer in the stack. I'm the leader of the SEs at EMC, so I'm chief nerd of the field, right? And it was funny, I think he said vibrant. I was wondering if you were referring to my dress today, Eric. Was it my jacket that you were referring to? So the thing that's interesting is increasingly as I look to SEs, I want them to be infrastructure experts, you bet, but I want them to have a GitHub portal. I want them to understand programmability. I want them to understand Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Docker, just enough that they start to go, how do I not build something that's just awesome, but how do I build something that's awesome and programmable? And the reason for that is the importance of the PaaS layer. So, and by the way, this is true all the way up through the top layer of the infrastructure, which is the VMware and infrastructure as a service layer. Here's a few very short examples of how we actually work underneath the covers within the federation to make this stuff actually work better together. So example number 1, Pivotal Cloud Foundry version 2.1 came out very recently. Does anyone know what was cool in there? VCHS. It plugs into VCHS. So there's that Bosch layer that James Waters was talking about. It has this little CPI giblet, cloud provider integration thing that goes and pushes to the infrastructure layer. It plugs into VCHS. What's the top layer of VCHS? VCAC. It publishes the VCD interfaces as well, the vCloud APIs. So what does that mean? Who here is using any part of the vCloud suite? Oh, remember, more hands should go up. And by the way, if it's not, who here is using OpenStack then perhaps to provide their infrastructure as a service layer? Who did not raise their hand? Raise their hand. Don't be that customer I was talking about up front. Think about how important it is to publish your infrastructure as a service, as an API, as a catalog. It's so important, right? Because Pivotal Cloud Foundry now actually plugs in, and by the way, VCAC's roadmap, the next version of VCAC, I hope I won't get in trouble for talking about it, 6.1, VMworld's coming up soon enough, will basically have a whole bunch of additional stuff that improves its northbound behaviors into Pivotal Cloud Foundry. Now, again, the Joe Tucci way, as our chairman, is don't hyperbound them. Don't say, Pivotal Cloud Foundry, you can only work with these guys. But to say, guys, come on, work together to make sure that the customers, when they choose these things together, it's an A+ gold star, right? So bringing workflows together so that application landscapes, as they get deployed, automatically map into VCAC workflows. Things like the ongoing tasks that Bosch needs to tell the underlying infrastructure as a service layer are now bolted together. Things like, how do you take those and manage them through their life cycle? Example number 2. I love James. James, are you in the room still? No? It's a bummer. Now I can talk about him. So, everybody sees the world through their own lens. Pivotal Cloud Foundry has unbelievable tools for the developer to manage the life cycle of their apps. What it doesn't have is once it goes down and it tells that infrastructure what to do, the domain people who are responsible for infrastructure don't have any visibility into the tools that Pivotal Cloud Foundry goes and says and does. But you know what does? VCAC does. And the more that we can actually map the access controls, the rights and management that is necessary for the enterprise to be able to do what it does while doing zero constraints on the developers so they can do all the stuff they want to do, that's what makes the enterprise agile. That's what makes it a software-defined enterprise. Third example. This is an interesting one. Deep coupling with how infrastructure then gets deployed all the way through the whole cycle into VCAC, including on-prem and off-prem. And by the way, underneath that, VCAC needs to plug into workflow engines to manage the server domain, the networking domain, the server domain. EMC storage customers, raise your hands. I'm going to do a test of our field here. What is a freely available tool that abstracts out all EMC storage and third-party storage into a programmable northbound interface and service catalog? The Viper controller, right? And by the way, what does that bolt into? OpenStack, VCAC, and others, right? www.emc.com, whack, get Viper, right? So, and by the way, this is a whole new model of how to consume coolness from your vendors is like, hey, try it, give it a whirl. You don't have to have a meeting with a sales rep as step 1, because who really wants to do that? Anyone? Maybe if it's over a good meal or something like that, or a golf game, but no? All right. Everyone here loves their sales teams. That's good. Next example, taking Pivotal Cloud Foundry, making it run on VCHS as a first-class citizen, right? Another example. I'll give you a couple of other interesting examples. Who here has a Hadoop project? That's fantastic. Again, next time, meet with us after the breakouts. Let's talk. There's lots of ways to explore this stuff. Example number one, Pivotal Hadoop runs best on a software-defined data center layer. Tight coupling with vSphere's Hadoop extensions and big data extensions. Next one, runs best on EMC's Hadoop implementation. And we actually have several, some that are more geared towards enterprise, some that are geared towards web scale folks. Again, parting kind of quick thoughts on this, it was again terrifying to me. When I asked that customer at the beginning of the meeting, I said, quick, what is your brand association of EMC? And it'd be, what do you think he said? Big, giant black boxes, right? That show up. They're really good and they're very reliable, but they're expensive and, complex. I'm like, oh my God, such a long way to go. Now, we actually do that. That's a very important part of our business, right? But our business is being disrupted in the same way that VMware's business is being disrupted, Pivotal's business is being disrupted, and your business is being disrupted. Increasingly, our customers kind of look like this. This is literally a single customer order, right? Rolling in off of the factory, right? And this customer has 85 petabytes of Isilon deployed, 20,000 spindles. That's a lot of big, badass black cabinets with LEDs on them, right? So, by the way, you use this every day in some way, shape, or form, right? So again, you don't see it, but you're using it as part of a SaaS offering behind the scenes. But as mind-blowing as this is actually only one example, and it still involves the hardware and software being coupled. So Flash and things like Extreme I/O are disrupting transactional workloads. These scale-out NAS are disrupting how people do NAS and HDFS. But there's examples that dwarf this. Imagine a customer that deploys 200,000 spindles, and this is not a Flash use case, which is why the idea of an all-Flash data center is applicable for all-Flash workloads, transactional stuff. But trust me, there's lots and lots of workloads that look like this still. This is how much they deploy every quarter. And by the way, when you walk into their data center, there isn't an EMC logo to be seen. It's all software running on commodity hardware, right? At giant Uber web scale. Again, you use this every day. Now, the way that this stuff ties together, and closing thought, again, this is a room of technologists. These are high-level discussions intended to inspire, make you think about what you're doing, make you think about your own business, right? In the end, there's lots and lots of stuff to talk about in breakouts, and I'm here all day as well. You can come and grab me at any time. This is an example of an architecture about how to build a business data lake. So, for example, you can see that you're going to use things like Python, SAS, R for analytics. You're going to use Pivotal HD. You're going to use things like Redis. You're going to use things like key value stores, in-memory databases, Gemfire, right? And these things can smoke any relational database and data warehouse that's a legacy architecture. They can smoke an Exadata. Not even close. It's like orders of magnitude faster. Trust me, the people that do analytics at Uber scale do not start with a traditional relational database. They start with stuff that looks like this. And then underneath that, you're going to have a data lake that basically supports that presents stuff via HDFS, using things like Isilon that can do NAS and HDFS, using things like the Viper Object Store on commodity at web scale. And that's why we buy innovative things like DSSD that basically is an HDFS key value store hyper-performance tier and layer, right? But a good thing to do in breakouts and a good thing to do with great partners like Ahead is these guys are ahead of the game. It's a good play on words, a good company name, right? They're already thinking about this. I remember having a conversation with Cappy, what was it, like 2 years ago, dude? And we were like, hey, what are we going to do next? And there was like hey, let's start to invest in HDFS and what we're going to do with that stuff. So great partnership. That's the software-defined enterprise. Thank you guys for being EMC, VMware, Pivotal, and Ahead customers.